1943. The middle of World War II, while soldiers fought across oceans and continents. America was losing a different kind of war. A war happening in plain sight. A war that nobody could explain. Liberty ships were breaking apart. Not in storms. Not in combat. In calm, peaceful water. Without warning, 19 broke completely in half. 3 vanished at sea. Thousands of cracks spreading like spiders through the hulls. The U.S. had a crisis on its hands and nobody knew why. The military was panicking. Generals were demanding answers. The Navy couldn't explain the catastrophic failures. How could the most advanced nation on Earth build ships that fell apart like they were made of paper? The United States needed cargo ships desperately. The war depended on supplies reaching Europe and the Pacific. So shipyards did something nobody had ever done before. They built ships in record time. Before the Liberty Ship Program, it took a year to build a cargo vessel. These ships? 5 days. 5 days. That was revolutionary, impossible, and for a moment, it worked. Thousands of workers, day and night shifts, welding steel together faster than human hands had ever moved. Kaiser's Richmond shipyards in California became a marvel of American ingenuity. Men and women working around the clock, creating the vessels that would win the war. By 1943, something was terribly, inexplicably wrong. Ships were failing. Cargo lost. Men at sea questioning whether their vessels would hold. The Navy couldn't explain it. The engineers couldn't explain it. The shipyard owners were panicking. Some whispered that the steel was defective. Others blamed the design. Some suggested sabotage, but the truth was far more elusive. And then something extraordinary happened. Someone noticed something. Someone who wasn't supposed to have all the answers. Someone who listened. Her name was Bessie Hamill. She worked the night shift at Kaiser's Richmond shipyards in California. She was a welder, one of thousands. But Bessie had a gift. While senior engineers sat in offices theorizing, creating complex models and running calculations, Bessie watched. She watched how other welders worked. She watched the sequences. She watched where the cracks began. And she noticed something nobody else had. The way the welds were being done, order of the welds was creating stress in places the engineers hadn't considered. It sounds almost ridiculous. A night shift welder solving what the smartest minds in engineering couldn't, but Bessie wasn't just welding. She was observing. She was thinking. She understood something fundamental about material physics that the engineers had overlooked. When metal is welded, it doesn't just bond. It contracts. It shrinks. And if you weld in the wrong sequence, that contraction creates internal stress that builds and builds until the metal can't take it anymore and cracks. She brought her observation to her supervisors. A ridiculous observation, some might call it. A working-class woman telling trained engineers they'd gotten it wrong. In 1943, that took courage. But the shipyard listened. They tested her theory. They ran the numbers. They examined the failed ships with her insight in mind. And she was right. By changing the welding sequence, the order in which joints were fused, the stress distributed differently. The cracks stopped appearing. The ships held. The crisis was solved. It wasn't a complex equation. It wasn't a revolutionary blueprint. It was observation. It was humility from the experts to listen to someone on the ground. It was Bessie's refusal to accept that the problem was unsolvable. The shipyards implemented the new welding sequence across every single vessel. Within months, the failure stopped. Ships that had been breaking apart in calm water suddenly became reliable. The Liberty ships became the backbone of American supply lines. Over 2,700 vessels were built using Bessie's discovery. Think about that for a moment. Over 2,700 ships. Thousands of sailors whose lives depended on hulls that wouldn't split in half. Supplies that reached troops in Europe and the Pacific. The entire war effort steadied because one woman decided to pay attention. Because she watched, because she listened, because she cared enough to speak up about something she noticed in the darkness of the night shift. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. Bessie Hamill changed the course of modern engineering forever. Her discovery didn't just save ships during the war. It fundamentally transformed how we build everything. Every skyscraper you've ever walked into, every pipeline carrying water or fuel across the country, every bridge you've crossed, every welded structure standing. Today, they all exist because of lessons learned in those Richmond shipyards. They all stand because Bessie understood something about stress and sequence that became the foundation of structural engineering, the science of brittle fracture, the physics of residual stress. These became core principles taught in every engineering school. But most people have never heard her name. She didn't become famous. She didn't get patents or royalties or monuments. While generals got parades and engineers got promotions, Bessie remained largely anonymous. She died in obscurity. A woman whose observation revolutionized an entire field, forgotten by history. The victory ships that came after Liberty ships used her methods. The techniques spread to every shipbuilding nation. When the war ended, those same principles were applied to construction, to manufacturing, to infrastructure projects worldwide. Bridges that span continents, dams that hold back rivers, skyscrapers that touch the clouds, oil platforms that drill deep into the ocean floor. All of them rely on principles that trace back to a night shift welder in California. Today, when engineers design welded structures, they're still following principles that trace back to a night shift welder in 1943, when bridges are built, when dams are constructed, when oil rigs are assembled, the science of brittle fracture and residual stress concepts. Bessie intuitively understood guide every decision. She solved the problem by seeing what experts missed. Not because she was smarter, but because she was present. She was humble. She watched. She listened to what the steel was telling her. Bessie Hamill never sought the spotlight. She probably never imagined her observation would outlive her by decades, shaping the built world for generations. She just noticed something. She spoke up. And she changed everything. Her legacy isn't carved in stone or written in history books that most people read. Her legacy is written in steel. It's in every welded joint that holds. It's in every structure that stands strong against the test of time. It's in the safety of millions, of people who will never know her name, but whose lives are protected by her wisdom. The next time you cross a bridge, walk into a skyscraper, or see infrastructure built to last, remember this: somewhere in its design, in its DNA, is the legacy of a woman who welded ships in the darkness and saw what brilliant minds had missed. Her name was Bessie Hamill, and she deserved to be remembered.